Pada 16 Julai 1981, Datuk Seri Dr. Mahathir Mohamad dilantik sebagai Perdana Menteri Malaysia yang keempat.
Tujuan kita melancarkan gerakan budaya kerja cemerlang ini adalah untuk meningkatkan kualiti hidup kita.
Kejayaan ini adalah hasil daripada berbagai faktor. Yang paling utama ialah langkah kerajaan untuk menukarkan asas ekonomi negara daripada pertanian dan perlombongan kepada perindustrian. Idea-idea baru yang dinamik dalam memimpin negara ini ke satu era yang penuh kegemilangan dan kemakmuran. Sebagai Perdana Menteri, beliau telah mengambil langkah-langkah bijak untuk membuktikan kepada dunia yang Malaysia tidak harus diperkecil-kecilkan. Malaysia kini mampu menampilkan imej dan keupayaannya.
My name is Farid bin Ibrahim. I'm 38 years old. I live in Kuala Lumpur, the beautiful city I believe. My father worked in Malaya University in civil engineering. So he always take me to the university when I was still in school. So from there I developed my interest in construction industry. So then I have a dream to be an engineer. I did civil engineering studies, then I worked for 1 year. I further my study to London in construction industry in 93 to 95. I have to pay £160,000 for my studies and all my expenditure. I was lucky because it was supported by the government. They have the scheme to help students. Most of the Bumiputra family cannot afford to send their children for further study, especially to London, because that's the most expensive city. That also happened to my parents, because my parents working for the government. Bumiputra Opportunities is introduced by Tun Mahathir in the early 80s.
Whether the ethnic group prospers or not depends upon their own ability. One ethnic group is very good in business, so it is necessary for the government to help the group that is disadvantaged, the indigenous people. What we give to the disadvantaged group is more opportunities as the economic cake grows. We don't take what belongs to the other group, but we grow the economy, and from the growth area, we give to the disadvantaged group.
When I was in London, I see the city development. Some area is an old area, heritage in London. Some area is developed by tall buildings. We have a group studies, visit Paris, other city in Europe. The architecture shows the development of each country. When I come back, the construction the industry is booming. The Malaysian government tried to develop the whole country. At that particular time, actually, Japanese coming to Malaysia, the Japanese investor. Our previous Prime Minister, which is Tun Mahathir, have a policy to look to the east. He wants us to take an example how the Japanese work, how hard they work.
It was earlier than 1995. The idea of smart partnership is about a partnership that is beneficial to both sides. Not a situation where one side gains the other side loses. And this began really very early when we noticed that the Japanese invested in Malaysia to gain advantage from the low cost in Malaysia. And when they invest in Malaysia, Malaysians become richer. We have employment, we have a lot of money flowing into the country. The Japanese help us to industrialize, and then we became a good market for them.
The skyscrapers start to come up, if I remember, the early 90s also, because of the foreign investment. They need to build up their headquarters and all that. I work for Palcon Engineering. This company originally is from Singapore, specialist in deep basement foundations. I did a few basement jobs for skyscrapers like Gold Hill Plaza in Raja Chulan, and then Nico Hotel. I did also tendering for the foundation of the KLCC Petronas Twin Tower. That was back in 1991. The foundation depth is around 120 meters from the ground level. The development of the Malaysian country, especially Kuala Lumpur, can be measured by skyscrapers coming up everywhere.
Americans or European or even the Japanese, when they invest in our country, they create jobs for our people, even if they are given tax exemption, and that creates jobs also for construction, for supply of material and all the necessary things in order to put up the plant. And once the plants are here, then of course it is in their interest to see that these plants continue to work. In a way, they are held to ransom almost by us because they have solid investment in the country.
In 1985 and 86, we had across-the-board falling of all commodity prices as a result of the recession at that time. And we know that the country could not depend on commodities such as rubber, palm oil and tin. And we had to do a very aggressive transformation of the economy. And so in 87, we started the accelerated industrialization drive. In the first stage of our industrialization, it was manufacturing. And the main area was electronics, broad-based electronics. And then within the decade, we progressed into value-added services. And then we went into IT, multimedia, for example. And of course, outsourcing, the call centers, and also the undertaking of services related to IT and manufacturing operations. Many companies have already set up their regional base, Asia-Pacific base here in Malaysia. And not because of cheap labor, but because of our labor force being educated, and their learning curve is very short. And this multilingual profile of our workforce is an added factor for us. So we've managed to grow there. And we are third ranking in the world for outsourcing business after China and India. So that's quite high ranking.
When I'm back from London, I didn't get a job for 3 months. So I sell meat down the street. I start with 1,800 ringgit a cow. We send them for a slaughter, then we sell them. took me 3 hours only to finish the whole thing. And then I earned 3,800 ringgit. My profit at that time, 2,000 ringgit. If I work for people, my monthly salary is only 1,800 ringgit. After 3 months, I got a job with Bumi Highway Malaysia Sdn. The first project monitored the construction of Alustar to Kuala Kedah.
We realized that Malaysia is a very small country, limited market, and of course population base is relatively small, only in the 20 millions at that time. So we saw the need for us to expand our reach into ASEAN, which has more than 500 million people. And then we also saw our reach being necessitated by going into the South countries, the developing countries, where we know existing markets are available, plus new markets that we can develop.
I was involved in the construction of this highway back in 1990. Yeah, that time. Yeah, we did a lot of quite a number of bridges along the highway, which is crossing to some of the stream and rivers. This highway is very, very practical. Lorries and trailers bring products to be exported via Singapore. This highway helps a lot of total infrastructure development. I think the longest stretch will be Johor, from Pago to Singapore. I was born to be a businessman, I suppose. But of course, I work for people to gain the experience. So year 2000, I decided to quit my job. I tried to be contractor because I saw big checks for my boss. So I said, well, this is a good millions of money. Then I formed up a company. That time, I cannot get a project directly to the government because to be a contractor is a very capital intensive. In construction, you have to be really, really experienced. You have also to have your own machinery.
We compare our strength with Singapore, with Taiwan, with South Korea, because these were countries that were at par when we became independent. If we compare with these countries now, we are far behind. Taiwan has surpassed in terms of GDP 4 times. Singapore, South Korea probably 3 times, which means Malaysians should ask, why couldn't we succeed a bit more?
Year 2000, the construction industry quite busy. I mean, privatization of highways and all that. But of course, this is actually not for a small company. The tender is very, very competitive. In construction, the profit margin is very low. So I can say the ranging around net 5%. So we did get some small jobs and all that. Then I gave up.
Stop the corruption, which is very endemic now in Malaysia. Stop this cronyism. Yes, privatization. We had some success, but there are major failures too. Which companies get the privatization? Companies close to ministers, families of prime minister, and this has to stop.
In the 1990s, there was unusually high growth rate, 9%. You know why? Because at that time, the government was building up all the infrastructure of the country. For example, during the same 10-year period, almost, we were building the highways, completing the major highways. We were building the new airport. We were refurbishing the other airports. We were building up new ports, expanding existing ports. So the government was undertaking very massive infrastructure build-up. So the government spending and investment actually stimulated growth.
in the years I was finance minister, I even prepaid, before the given time for payment, I prepaid 12 billion ringgit of debts, settled. I stopped new funds from the World Bank in 93, 94. I stopped it because we don't need the World Bank funding at that time because we had already registered surplus in our budget. Now we are registering almost 5% deficit and probably more. I was a minister in a cabinet under Dr. Mahathir, so I was not, fully in charge. But I would say that in terms of economic development, we achieved 9-10% growth at that time. Now what? 4-5%. We were, in terms of competitive index, compared to countries that considered to be competitive, we were top 17 in the world. Now probably number 50. In terms of foreign direct investments, we were number 1 in ASEAN. We are probably number 5 now. So I may be a bit biased, but I think we were certainly better off based on the economic data and statistics.
Then I was thinking what to do. At that time, the travel industry was really good. Malaysia became famous. KL International Airport completed in year 97. It's the best airport in the world. Then I started it early 2001 until 2003. I got a contract around $500,000 a month to handle a few groups of people. That was the sales, but in this travel industry, the profit margin is not that attractive. Just like airlines agent, you cannot mark up so much on the pricing. In 2003, the bird flu affected the travel industry so bad. Then I have to close my business again. So I did a lot of research also when I was jobless for almost 6 months. So it was a very difficult time for me. Then I decided with my partner to start up with these cattle projects. Then only we realized there are so many goats die every day. Our company used to have about 2,000 goats at one time. So we make some money on beef, but we have to cover the losses at the goat. But then I have a chance to import beef from India to supply to the local processors. So then we make some money. Earlier on, the government emphasized on the property development. But back 2005 onwards, the Prime Minister Tun Abdullah Badawi and the government are giving full force on this agricultural industry because people start to realize that we don't have enough food reserve.
I'm Kwan Singh from Hap Sing Rice Mill, and I'm the chairman of the Crane Rice Millers Association. During our Chun Mahare period, I think he is more concerned on industrializations of the country, and is a little bit neglect on the agriculture sector. When our Pala PM Abdullah Badawi come into pictures, he changed. He says we must go back to agriculture. Our family, we are more concerned on agricultural sectors. The mushroom farm is handled by my younger brother, Victor, with my elder sister also. And I'm in the rice mill with my other sisters. We started the rice milling business in 1952. My father started with a Malay partner by the name of Saad bin Ismail until when he passed away. He couldn't have any sons, and then the daughter finally sold out the chair. My father was sick, so I had to join the family. Rice milling in 1972 after my secondary education. My father trained me as a sweeper, getting a salary of $40 per month. But actually, through my experience, from A to Z, I know everything. Workers, my technicians, engineers, they cannot bluff me anything. For the first 1-2 years, I was mainly in the daily operations practice. Then after that, I go for marketing. The machine those days in the 50s, in the 60s, we call it all-in-one. They mill the paddy, after that they don't grade it. So the rice coming out is not so quality as it is today. Okay. In the 60s, we start install the second set of machineries. That is from Germany. So during 70s, we fixed up the third set of machineries, all from Thailand. We're still using manual to dry the paddy on the drying yards. So that time we engaged 100 over workers just for the drying of paddy. So in 1976, we start install a dryer using diesel as a fuel. We Malaysians, irrespective of Malay, Chinese, Indians, all the races taking rice, even to the extent they take 3 meals, which the government also play a very major role in monitoring the supplies and demands of the rice. In the 50s, of course, the population is not so big, so those days we import from China, from Burma, and because of rice crisis, the government come in, impose a system that rice miller have to give a certain quota back to the government as a stockpile. In Malaysia, still we don't have enough rice to supply the own population. We are still shortage of ranging from 30 to 35% of rice. So this has to be imported out from Thailand, Pakistan, India also, Vietnam. LPN was taken over as privatized entrepreneurs. They control and monitor the supplies of rice in Malaysia because they are the only monopoly importers. In kampong area, lady you want to go for giving birth. Middle of the night, they come to rice mill asking for help. We have to do, just like ambulance, to go to pick them in the home and then send to the hospital. School openings, you want to buy shoes, buy a uniform for the children. We have to provide some cash to them. In return, when harvesting time, they sell the paddy to us on a mutual agreement, on a trust-to-trust basis. That is why some of my customer farmers, 30, 40 years until today, now the second generation also, the sons still continuing supplying to me. To us in the kampong, we don't feel any racial problem. We just treat ourselves as in a family.
Asian values lay emphasis on the well-being of the community, not the individual. Western values place emphasis on individual rights. Whenever an individual wants to do anything, he should be able to do it whether the community likes it or not. Asians prefer the community to be given priority, that one person cannot do something that damages or undermines the life of the majority. That is the difference. Asian values place emphasis on not only the nuclear family, not only the husband and wife, but the uncles and the aunts and the nephews and the nieces. All of them belong to the same family, and each one of them has a responsibility for the whole family, and all the families are then connected.
Our government have a subsidy, the urea, insecticides, plowing charges that can be claimed, and then there's an incentive for those who produce a higher yield, more than 5 tons, because government expectation is 10 metric tons per hectare. We achieve averaging about 5 to 6. Because of the recent financial tsunami, the price of rice has tripled in the 07-08. So the government subsidied the rice again. The standard of Malaysia is quite high, other than Thailand. We can produce the same quality as good as in Thailand also until today for rice milling. Unlike other countries our neighboring country like Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, From planting to harvesting, it takes about 120 days. With the changes of the harvester in the 70s, the harvesting time is faster. To match up, the rice mill have to increase their drying capacity. So the number of risers has to be increased. That means the drying period for rice mill also shorter, comes about 1 month. So 2 seasons you use about 2 months. That means within a year, 10 months idling. That is the main reason why we decided to diversify our family business. We venture into these palm oil estates, real estates, rubber estates also, poultry sector, aquaculture, mushrooms. We have gone through recessions, inflations, and then also the lately what we call financial crisis. Poultry sector is affected sometimes with unforeseen things like the bird flu. Rice is a staple food for our Malaysians. It's not affected.
I gave up the cattle farming, then I was jobless for a few months. A friend of mine said, why not you try fish? I took America as an example. Most of the Marines soldier is encouraged to eat catfish. I found catfish is actually not a new thing to Malaysia. Then I did a lot of research on recirculating aquaculture system. Water quality we can control because it is a closed system. Like the Vietnam experience, they lost quite a lot in fish industry because of contamination on the Mekong River. Most of the river in Malaysia now is heavily polluted because of housing or other developments. They do a lot of earthworks, earth cutting and everything. When it rains, everything flows into the river. So that's caused the river pollution. So no aquatic plants can live if the water quality is like this. If this carried on like this, there will be no more fish for human consumption. Our catfish farm is situated in Alor Gajah, Malacca. Last time it was a rubber plantation, but the farmer converted it to a fish farm. We can produce around 200 tons of fish for every 2 months. The longer time to gain back your investment, the more risk. The spawning will take about only 3 days and the eggs will hatch. So we can plan the breeding and spawning very fast, very much depending on the demand. The whole process will take about 4 to 5 months, very much depending on the farming technology. When it is raining, it's very less oxygen. We have to inject or blow oxygen into the tanks. We have to have the fish breathe. swollen. I think fish business is really a big business because at the present moment the ocean is overfishing. Not much of fish available. The demand is higher, the supply is low, so that means the price fluctuation is very, very great.
Overseas, US is coming up with a new hybrid of tilapia again, and coming soon another breed of tilapia.
It's very hard for us to compete in the future. Yeah.
If we stay focused, we can compete.
Actually approaching to our land of 2 acres, which we plan to put up our factory for fish processing. So the surrounding people will be benefited. So they can rear fish and can send their fish here for processing. All palm tree, it can be cut and sent to the paper factory. So overall of the total area is about 1,000 acres, which is in Sendayan, Negeri Sembilan. We want to turn most of the activities into aquaculture. One day I met Mr. Koh. He supplied me fish feed, rice bran, a combination of the cornmeal and everything. Then only they form the fish pellet. We ventured together where I put some capital, he put some capital to start with this business. He at present moment responsible for marketing. We have another setup of company which is Consortium Padi Malaysia, which I also venture with Mr. Koh, where we are taking over his factory to join together with this fish industry. Eventually, the fish and the rice, a combination of this business is really a smart partnership. I decided with Mr. Koh after nearly a year that we run this, we need to have a capital injection. We need more money, about 20-30 million. So we basically working on this IPO. So then we met Mr. Rosian. He has got the experience in the corporate approach.
My name is Muhammad Rosian Muhammad Yunus. I'm 46 years old. I was born in Negeri Sembilan. That is about 1 hour's drive from Kuala Lumpur. Then I pursued my study in Mara Institute of Technology. I did my degree in UK in Bachelor of Science in Economics in University of London. I started my working career with the government, then I pursued furthermore to oil and gas company. Started as a procurement side.
Oil production is not very big in Malaysia. We produce 650,000 barrels a day. We use now about 400,000, leaving 250,000 for export. Most of the time, 82% of our export is made up of manufactured goods. Only 18% is made up of commodities, and that includes oil and palm oil, rubber, and some other commodities.
Petronas and our oil is still considered one of the best in the world. Even now, Aramco has started to refine it from crude to refine diesel or petrol up in the northern side, in the east coast of Malaysia. If you go to the Google, you can see Tapis. It is from Petronas. It's so one of the best oil produced ever in the world. It's been used as a guideline. So Malaysia is still the best. You are enjoying a good life in oil and gas company, then suddenly you're out of job. I left to join a Japanese firm. I was there for almost 10 years as a procurement head. After a while, I was offered to join one conglomerate. Started my whole career spin-off from there. The company rose from nothing up to they are doing about almost 200 million, 300 million a year. Then again, the next economy hit us. We were down again. I moved back to oil and gas. Development of oil and gas was a bit slow initially. Then it goes up rapidly until late last year. Everybody was rushing into Malaysia. It was until $140 per barrel. Out of $60 per barrel, the British company that I work with, I was the managing director with them. They hit a turmoil. Again, another economic slowdown. I was introduced to Chief Farid through a cousin of mine who breed fish. So I started moving in. With the potential market leader, we should be growing about 10 million for every 6 months if we follow the schedule. Where can you get 1.6 million return every 2 months for 2 hectares of land? Almost impossible. We are targeting to go for IPO. There's initial public offering by 2010. Potential to grow up to 150 million for the next 3 years. Farid is the group CEO, Mr. Kaur is in charge of financing, I'm in charge of corporate strategy.
In running a company, we have to think of the company as a whole, not as the CEO, I must take as much money as possible for myself. We must feel responsible for the whole group. In essence, a smart partnership is part of Asian value. You know, the Western value is this zero-sum game. You succeed at the expense of the other. The other will lose because you will succeed. In Asian value, you want both sides to succeed, to gain something. And that means that you look at your partner as a part of the family almost. That you don't want to do something so that he will become poor and you become rich. You take away his wealth. That is not Asian. Asian value means you have to care for the other people as well.
That is Tun Mahathir's idea. Where can you get the bankers to give you trust, to give you what, 100 million, 200 million in US dollars? We are quite happy to be the kind of partnership we are building. I think smart partnership that during Tun Mahathir's concept has been a reality. It's not easy to develop, but to develop a trust between each other is the most difficult thing to do. Money you can find. It's hard, but still you can find. But friendship and trust to build a smart partnership is where it lies. Tun Mahathir Vision 2020 is a must look for all of us Malaysians. If we work together, the one Malaysia, that our current Prime Minister is saying. By one measure, everybody put their resources, work together in harmony. We should be able to reach a fully developed country by 2020, inshallah.
That policy benefited more of the rich and the leaders. We give $1 billion worth of shares contracts to 5-10 families, and we give 100 million to 10 million people. That's not what justice to my mind.
I do criticize myself. I make mistakes. I'm human. I make mistakes. I make wrong judgments. But I have to admit that it is wrong. If it is wrong, then I take corrective action. Smart partnership is not a mistake. It is a good thing. The only thing is that some people do not know how to implement it, how to carry out these things successfully.